Hi there everyone, Laurel Beard here, and I'm super excited to share a project that I've been working on with Justine Hovey. We're doing live classes. They're virtual classes online. We've got a Facebook group. I'll link to it below in the description. And how it works is the first week of the month, a supply list will be posted with sneaks of the cards we will create that month. So you can shop and ensure you have the supplies needed to create with us if you want to. Then towards the end of the month, we're going to go live and make the cards with you. So live video gives you the opportunity to ask us questions, follow along, have some fun. And if you miss it, that's okay, because we know live videos can be really annoying to rewatch. So we will repost the live and our videos on YouTube, which is what I'm doing right here. So you can still take the class. So I'll be sure to include all the links below that you need to check out this new endeavor. Each month we'll be working with a theme or technique, and this month is all about alcohol lifts. Before I get started, when working with alcohol inks, wear gloves, work in a well-ventilated area, and never, ever, ever spray your blending solution or your alcohol ink because it contains resin, and that's a big no, 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 no. To see a video on creating alcohol ink backgrounds, click here or go to the YouTube description below, and I'll also link it at the end of the video. This month we're talking about the alcohol lift ink pad and re-inker. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in this video here. That's a background I already created, and that's a perfect vine stencil from Catherine Pooler. If you're interested in learning about my little stencil holder, I've got a video for you here too. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and place that stencil down. Now you can use a foam or felt dabber. I'm using felt here, and I'm dabbing. Dab, 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 dab. No swiping, because then you're going to kind of swipe all your design away. So I'm simply dabbing right through the stencil. Add a little bit more. Don't get too crazy with the refill there, but just enough to make sure it's transferring through that stencil. And what it does is it's going to lift up the ink. So I pull the stencil off, and I'm using a microfiber cloth because I actually like the texture that it leaves behind, but most people use a paper towel. Use a fresh area every time you're kind of dabbing away some of that. You want to make sure to dab the ink away with a new area before you start wiping it clean, or you're going to smear all the color all around. And then you're left with this beautiful, beautiful background here. So I've gone ahead and grabbed a big word die cut here, and I went ahead and die cut that with my Gemini Junior. I love it because it cuts out all the pieces. That's a beautiful machine for very intricate die cuts, let me tell you. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere this panel down to a teal card base here. There's so much you can do with these backgrounds here. Now, I'm doing all of my alcohol backgrounds are on Yupo paper. I don't know if I mentioned that, but anytime I create my backgrounds, I'm using Yupo paper. I find there's different kinds of paper. I think Ranger even has a Yupo paper now, and there's actually alcohol ink paper. The best paper I found for alcohol inks is actually Yupo. So I went ahead and popped that high up with some foam dimension, and that's this card. Check out that design of the stencils. Isn't that neat? I know it. All right, next I wanted to see if I could create designs with just the felt dauber. So I've gone ahead and added some of that refill right to my dauber, and I'm just kind of creating little circles. I'm kind of pressing and kind of swishing back and forth a little bit just to see if I can create circles. I don't know, like a bouquet effect or something like that. The circles are big and bold, and I'm just lifting up that color right there. So I'm kind of dabbed away the refill, and then I'm going through and kind of in a circular motion removing the rest of that ink using a new area of my cloth every time. And I love how that looks. I just do. So when I was looking at my background, I happened to see my foam dimension roll here on on the test. So I'm like, So I took it, and I took a Sharpie. Any permanent marker will work, and I just drew a circle. I don't know. When I craft, I don't have a plan, clearly. I did not know I was going to use that and create a circle. But I did with that Sharpie because it's a permanent marker. I've grabbed a stamp set, Rainbows and Unicorns. I just looked around to find any kind of stamp that would fit inside the circle that I created on the fly here. Now I'm using a VersaFine ink here. Now this is Yupo paper, which is incredibly sticky. So be sure you press down and lift up, or grab your MISTI tool. Now, here's my boo-boo. I was going to cut it out, but I didn't. Make sure you use an anti-static tool before you do any heat embossing, because I had to take a dry brush and remove all of that embossing powder that was all over my panel. Now you can heat set on Yupo, but you got to keep that gun moving, 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 or your paper's going to like completely warp like no one's business, and you can't unwarp it. Now, because I had to brush away all that embossing powder, I brushed some away of the legs. So I took a Copic multi-liner, added the legs back in, and because I had kind of a blob of embossing powder down there, I added some texture by adding some paint droplets. I fixed my problem because I was not redoing this because I thought this was super cool. So don't redo your stuff. See if you can find a way to fix it. Now I'm going to use the Alcohol Lift ink pad, and Justine has a very detailed process on her video, but I've got a flower stamp here. I'm inking it up with that ink pad, the Lift ink pad, and then I'm just pressing. I've got a little cluster of flowers there from the 10 stamps, and I'm pressing it down directly onto my alcohol ink cardstock there. I chose a darker area. I find you really need the dark portion of your backgrounds in order to have the ink transfer. So when I lifted up that ink, it remains right there on my stamp, right? So I've grabbed a piece of neenah Solar White cardstock. Any porous cardstock will work. Any kind of cardstock, watercolor, anything but like Yupo that you would use for alcohol inks. And I've stamped it down and it transfers right over, and I got this beautiful soft wash. I'll show that to you in a minute. So here I am. I'm dabbing up the ink first. Remember, dab, dab, dab. And then once you've dabbed up all the ink, I did in a circular motion to remove the rest of it. And now I've got a beautiful impression here. So here's the alcohol background that we lifted up. So I have those beautiful flowers. So I just adhered to die cut here and called this card a day. Hello. And then for the other wash background, look how soft that is. Now, if you used bolder colors on your background, you would have some really bold transfers. So I kept this card very simple. I grabbed a gray marker here. I wanted to use light colors, and I just squiggled in a border. I wanted it to be real messy. I'm not using a ruler, totally freehand and squiggly. And then I stamped Have a Lovely Day with some Twilight Catherine Pooler ink. And this card is finished. I adhered both these cards to a card base. But look how pretty that is, right? Really pretty. So here's our first, class. This is not the live portion, obviously. This is where we're redoing our projects for our YouTube channels, but I will post the live portion of the class here on YouTube if you want to watch that as well. But we wanted to have all venues covered. Some people don't like live. Some people can't be available for live. Some people don't do Facebook. So we're covering all our bases here. So I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next month. Be sure to join that Facebook group if you're a Facebook member, so you will get the supply list and everything well ahead of time. We schedule the events, well in advance, and all the information is down in my YouTube channel, but a lot of it's over in my blog. Very, very easy to read and follow if you want to head over there as well. Thanks so much for joining us.